Today is March 30th, 2018, and you're watching Seventh Planet Broadcasting, and we're joined today with Betty Steele of Astrology with Betty. Hi, Betty. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
And Betty is a Long Island astrologer and has been fascinated with astrology since she was a child, a calling she came into the world with. Betty has been a professional astrologer for over 20 years and has had the honor of studying and connecting with the best in the astrological community. Betty is born and raised in Long Island, and she ventured to Scottsdale, Arizona, where she ran a store and gave readings, Reiki sessions, and taught and sold gems and knickknacks. She's since returned to Long Island, New York, and is actively practicing at astrologywithbetty.com, doing what she loves most. Betty views astrology as an amazing gift and tool to get in touch with your soul and psyche. Betty's natal chart reading can give you profound insight, offering great benefit into your life. Welcome, Betty. And
thank you.
Yeah, we're really excited to talk to you. I didn't actually think the next person that joined Christa's premiere content would be open to an interview. I didn't even think about, when you call it an interview, people go, oh my gosh, am I going to be interrogated, like that? But so we're really glad that you were open to sharing your path with us.
Oh my gosh, yes, thank you for sharing. Thank you. This is, I feel like I'm on cloud 9 right now.
Oh, that's fantastic. Wow, it's fun. And actually, wait till you see as you know, energetically, when a lot of people start viewing your material and sending, and their thoughts are intertwined with yours, you can feel it for days. It's actually quite amazing. So take notes of that for us, because you'll be real sensitive to that.
I will, thank you. I will.
Mm-hmm.
So as Gerald mentioned, we connected with Betty over a giveaway. Gerald was really sweet and posted a Facebook post announcing the Artistic Vegan Premium content and said for the next 10 people that sign up, they'll get a prize. And he upped the ante by saying he's going to do an interview. And Betty just happened to be the one that was the next person to sign up. And it just so happened that she has a YouTube channel, Astrology with Betty. And so she's already in the public interface and comfortable. So it just really came together really harmoniously.
And that's a beautiful background you have there. You painted that yourself, you said.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I did see. I wanted to work from my home because I have my daughter is young, and it was too hard to go meet clients. So I took this office. It was like a junk room, and I just gutted it and painted it. And I just spent like a weekend, and I was like, now it's my office.
That's beautiful. And I love the chakras there. It's great.
Well, Christa gave you a good intro. Is there stuff you want to tell the public about where
Betty?
You are? Tell us, what's the golden things about knowing about Betty that everybody should know?
Well, I live in Rockville Center, Long Island, New York, but I can do readings on the computer, on Zoom, or on the Skype, or on the phone. I just came into the world always interested in astrology. When I was little, my mom would take me to the library. I'd be like, oh, can we get an astrology book? And I didn't know why nobody was into it in my family. So I assumed that I was many lifetimes, because I don't know how to say this and be humble, but this is my thing. I'm very good at it. I've studied and everything, but it tells me a story when I read it. And I just love doing readings with people. I've been doing it for over 25 years. So
wow.
It's really great to connect with people on that level and look to empower them and help them. And I love doing like girls in their 20s and stuff, and like trying to get into their head before they make those bad decisions, or
before they go interview for American Idol.
Go through the School of Hard Knocks, or yeah.
Hey, I hope I'm not probing, but what can you tell us a little bit about your family tree? Like, where'd you guys come from? Do you know?
You can ask me anything. I grew up in Westbury. My father, as his parents were from Ireland, and my mother, but they all lived in Brooklyn. My parents are from Brooklyn, and they met. I grew up in a middle-class family on Long Island in Westbury. And it was pretty, non-eventful. Nothing really exciting. Nobody in my family is into this kind of stuff. So.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Oh, so you're like the black sheep of the family a little bit?
Very much so.
Oh, but it takes a brave soul to be the black sheep of the family and go your whole life and still connect with your path. And eventually, when you connect really good with your path, all of a sudden, guess what happens? your family starts coming around and go, oh yes, my daughter's a celebrity. Like that.
But my life has been a bit challenging, but now I know that it's because it's in with my past. So it is for what I do. And like I've started doing a Kundalini an adventure. And since I've been doing this, so many like it's been such an amazing journey. I've had it almost feels like a tumor has been removed from me, like any kind of resentment or anger or sorrow. Like I've had experiences where after the meditation it's hard to put into words, but it will go into like a feeling where I have forgiveness, appreciation, and compassion for anything that had ever happened. And because I've been setting my intention to open my heart and because I really do want to get out of here.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? It shows up in your energy.
It does, yeah.
You can tell.
Thank you. And you guys are wonderful. And I'm so grateful to have found you, because what happened was I was doing this, I was doing the meditation, and then I got a word in my head, Inanna.
Oh, interesting.
Really, just showed up out of nowhere, and you didn't. Had you ever studied any docs, ancient history? Or?
Wow.
Never. I mean, I knew about the Greek mythology for my astrological education, and of course, because I don't live in a closet, so I've heard of the Greek mythology.
Sure.
I thought it was more of a myth. I didn't really care that much. I mean, I knew about it, but it wasn't on my radar. I had never heard of Inanna ever. And then
when did this happen for you?
This happened in January, probably around January 15th-ish.
Mm-hmm.
So recent, very recent.
Yes, very recently.
Oh my gosh.
I started researching, and what I was finding was a lot of her journey into the underworld.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, well, that kind of made sense. I was okay. And then it was just hard to find information. And then I would find about like her and Dumuzi. I don't know if I'm saying his name right.
Yeah.
And what was the name of the site in Africa? The first site in Africa?
The House of Shinti? Or?
You're talking about the genetics lab, or the Eker Fortress, the House of Shimti, or you're talking about the Abzu?
Well, it's like stones. It was like a stone. It's supposed to be the.
You're talking about Adam's calendar?
Yes.
Oh yeah. So you know about Michael Tellinger's work?
Is that? See, I don't know much about it.
He wrote a book called The Slave Species of God, and he went down there. It had started with the finding of Adam's calendar outside of Johannesburg. It was where he was living, and they discovered via airplane that there was some circular stone edifice on top of a hill. They looked at the rocks, tried to figure out how old it was, and the best they could figure from this was it basalt or andesite. I don't remember the kind of rock. You're the rock person, right? So we're going to get into that. But based on the wearing and the patina, they figured it was approximately 75,000 years old. Well, the Anunnaki story goes down to South Africa in that same area where they're mining gold, but they say it was about 200,000 years ago. So who knows how old that was? But it's the same story. It's the same story. And you just stumbled on this in January?
Yes. And I have a lot of Scorpio placements, so I get obsessive. But I was blessed to find you guys. And see, when I first found it, I had been messaging with Christa, and I really love interacting with you. You're really sweet.
Oh, thank you. You too.
I told you, like and I've heard you talk about it. I mean, I always didn't believe in religion. Not that I don't believe in it, but it wasn't for me. I thought it was controlling. I've always been very different. And, but I'm not the type of, I'm not argumentative about it. I keep it to myself unless.
Yeah. Sure.
And, but I do believe in God very much, like in the source. I've always felt like going.
Right.
Yeah.
When I started to find out little dribs and drabs about this, I was really scared. I actually had anxiety. For a couple of nights, I woke up in like a panic because I was like, what is happening? Like, what is going on? I felt angry. I felt scared. I felt like, because I'm always, very into evolution and reincarnation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, if I've been duped this whole time, and I have to come back and do this nonsense. And like, I didn't understand so much, like what was happening. And so it was comforting to find out that there is the source above all of that. But I just am like, so is Inanna a benefactor, or have you ever heard of this? I was wondering, is she talking to me? Am I crazy? What?
Do you want to do a little bit of the story so you can tie her into history? Not the whole genealogy table, but maybe a little snippet that involves her. Would that help?
I would love whatever you feel. I mean, you're the genius. So.
Okay, so you apparently had some sort of vision with Inanna showing up. I mean, was it the image? Was it just the name?
The word.
Just word.
The word Inanna, very clear as day, though. Very clear as day in my head. And then I had another one, Tanzanite.
Yeah.
And I got my Tanzanite stuff because that one I had set my intention. I had asked him, can I see you? Can I speak to you? I kind of had set my intention of, can I speak to her? And then after that meditation, I heard Tanzanite.
No kidding, huh?
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, we looked up Tanzanite for you. And I know that in Arizona, not so much Phoenix, but Tucson gets those gem and mineral shows that are just epic. Were you there for that?
No, I wasn't in Tucson. I was in Scottsdale.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but so I got exposed to some of the gemology and how big that space is. I had no idea how many people are into it. Yeah. So,
Cool.
yeah, so I stumbled on the Anunnaki story by accident as well. And just for the listeners that may be watching you or for the first time, some of these characters that we're talking about here go way back in history, and they didn't operate alone. Recently, I put up a threat briefing document to indicate how many species have been visiting the Earth based on the intelligence we have, both from the KGB and from America and from other sources that may not be human that wrote this document. And it's upwards of 80 species that have been back and forth to the Earth over millennia. Millions of years, okay? As a matter of fact, one interesting cat you can look into who's been noticing this as well. You know, there's all of our evolutionary history about our true history. The Bible tells us it was 4,000 years ago, and, you know, coming from the... Well, now we've got evidence that goes back, some of it 65 million years, inside of coal mines where they found actually human or artificially made pots and things like that are embedded in the coal layers. There's no possible way it could be anything but the age of the layer where the coal was made, right? And many of those out of place, out of the ordinary artifacts are showing up around the planet. So we don't really truly know what the full history is on this planet. It just so happened when I stumbled on the Anunnaki story, it was important because in the Sumer civilization, they actually had records to indicate they didn't have a problem knowing that they, at that particular instance in time, had been genetically modified by these beings they called the Anunnaki. Okay? And they served them in all their capacities. Didn't really call themselves slaves, they just knew that they were the product of this alien colonizing species, and they did what they were told and they got what they wanted. Silos full of grain, water flowing from the reservoirs, and an easy life, you know. But they truly all were focused on serving those beings in the ziggurat temples in Sumer. Well, where's that? That's the area between the Tigris and the Euphrates in modern day Iraq. Okay. And Inanna, the name that you brought up, was one of the names used in those documents. Okay. And she had other names, and they all did as well. Because what we need to realize is, from the records we have, these beings lived a very long time. And they counted their lifetimes in their years, which is the time it took their planet to go around our inner sun, not the time it takes for our planet. So instead of 365 days, they said it took 3,600 of our years, our solar cycles, for them to go around one time.
Wow.
So what does that do to the biology of a being in their lifespan cycles? Clearly there's some link there, and we don't know exactly what it is. So with that said, they were around for a long time. They had many names. One of the key documents that we find Inanna in is there's two of them that really come to mind to find out who she is. Actually, three. The first one is the Epic of Gilgamesh, where she shows up as, they call her the Queen of Heaven. She's a temple priestess that's in a ziggurat temple in the city of Ur, or Rook, and apparently several others. And she has her temple there. Okay. And she took on the symbol of the moon. So that little edifice of the moon was hers, and her brother Nanar, by marriage through his father, was the moon god. So she was the moon goddess, and he was the moon god. Okay, and he's the one that.
Her father Enki?
No, her father was Enlil.
Her father?
Yeah, her father was
The bad one, right?
Her father, I'll have to go look at my genealogy table. Inanna was the daughter of Nanar, I believe. So it was either her father or, but they're both from the lineage of Enlil. Okay? And I don't know if you got that name yet, but in Mesopotamia, there was a division. Okay, we should talk about that.
I'm well caught up on your.
Okay, so the 4 divisions, we had Africa, we had Mesopotamia, we had the Sinai Peninsula, and then we had the Indus Valley, which was really key for Inanna, because that was the region she got. So the sacred feminine Kali in India was based on her archetype.
Okay.
But in Mesopotamia, we know that she was in Enlil's region, as in the Epic of Gilgamesh and others. So she was kind of an archetype, okay? So ultimately, we can talk about these characters as their personal actions, but if you generalize, they were all kind of role-playing in a way. And we all have archetypes too, and you know about this through astrology. So
yes.
Her archetype was the kind of like the Xena warrior princess, but also the sexual seductress. That was the role she played in the Epic of Gilgamesh.
The mother of harlots.
She was the king of the city of Uruk, and she tried to lure him in to have her temple sexual encounter with him. So ultimately what we want to talk about is that she represented, in the archetypes that shows up in the 7 spheres from Poimander, talking about what aspects of our soul are related to the planets. This is where you have tremendous knowledge, right? Well, Venus represents lust and desire, and that's exactly the role she was playing in the Epic of Gilgamesh and elsewhere. As a matter of fact, one of the stories, she wanted the tablets of civilization to roll out her own civilization, probably in the Indus Valley, because that's where she got territory, right?
Okay.
And so she got access to these tablets that Enki, her relative Enki had, and she got him drunk in the story, got some of the tablets and ran back to the Indus Valley to roll out this civilization aspects. And I think one of those was, many of those that came out of India, including yoga and early astrology, goes way back in the Indian history. So I think a lot of that information came from the Anunnaki documents on how to colonize a planet that she got access to.
Do you like her?
I don't like or dislike any of them. I see them all as archetypes. And we oftentimes experience that archetype.
It's good or bad, or...
Like, for instance, this gal named Estelle Nora Harwood put out a document where she talked about identity crisis that people are experiencing, right? So I did a show on this, personality and identity crisis, as related to these Anunnaki oversouls and others, okay? There's not just the Anunnaki, but the reason I picked on them is because they put their genetic mark on us the last time that we can tell, in creating us as a hybrid between some offspring of the Denisovians, which was either Cro-Magnon or Neanderthal, that created Homo sapiens, us. Okay, so that's the only reason I focus on. But there's a lot of other races that they're in alliance with too. So I'm not picking on just the Anunnaki, but the family members we're talking about are 2 Anunnaki clans under Enki and Enlil and all their offspring, essentially.
Can you differentiate Inanna and Isis?
Oh yeah, that's a very good point.
It's an easier question.
Now you have to understand that they are all vying for supremacy, and sometimes they would take on the names of the other one to make them go away, or in extreme cases they would chip off their face off a hieroglyph, go, yeah, that one, don't worry about that one, right? Well, there was some rivalry between Enki and his half-sister, who was known as Ninmah or Isis. Okay, she's the queen. She was the true queen of heaven. Okay, was Isis. But Inanna, being from the other family side, they had rivalries over the dominion of that region, and they had 2 different regions. The Sinai belonged to Ninmah. It was given to her in the casting of the lots, whereas Inanna was over in this valley. But Inanna ended up back in that region, and she wanted the planet Venus, and she wanted the title of Queen of Heaven too. So her and Ninmah were going at it over this title. So you'll see the documents, sometimes the names get confused, and a lot of people believe they were the same being.
That's when I looked, that's what it looked like, and then you cleared it up when I saw your research that, oh, it's two different people.
Here we have in the Atrahasis account where Anu is differentiating between her and Isis, because Ninmah is called out in the account too, and she's the one fashioning the beings, and Inanna's the one given a different region. Okay, so we know they're different beings. And then we go to Egypt and we see Hathor and Isis seated right next to each other as two different avatars. It's in the Egyptian Book of the Dead. I have it. So, but there is confusion over that. Okay, so the idea of which one is affiliated with this planet and that, they were all fighting for dominion over claiming a planet to say, yeah, that's mine. So,
do you think that it's malicious that they try to contact you, or do you think that I should like try to get involved with this or try to stay away from this? Or
anytime an avatar approaches you in the simulator, you don't know what their intent is, do you? You don't know if they want to use you to get something, or they're really being sent by the good side to facilitate some great thing in your life. You don't know until you trust and verify it, right?
Well, I wanted to tell you that I do set my intention, and I'm setting my intention to merge with Source, with the divine within, to go to the highest. That is my intention every time. So I felt, I mean, I don't know, she manipulated, I don't know.
Well, if I were to just do, and you're asking me to do what Daniel had to do to interpret a dream, but here's what I would say from that. Inanna represents that archetype, which is lust and passion, or desire. And in the spiritual path, in almost everyone I've seen, that there are two things you have to do, which is purify your consciousness and subjugate your ego. Well, the ego is so easily swayed by various chakras, and we know the lust and passion with the red chakra is probably a good one, which is where probably most people are. Let's be real, right? So maybe you're wrestling with the progression of this Kundalini that you're playing with, because each time you approach one of those gates in the chakras, not only are the entities that are affiliated with that chakra from the Hindu religion, where they talk about the gods that are assigned to each of the chakras, well, this shows up in Poimander's document as well, and in the Emerald Tablets, the 7 cycle masters own those chakras. So to get through the first red chakra, you're going to get a spiritual lesson and probably some, in each one. And they each represent a different archetype, if you will. So it's part of our evolution of our consciousness to look at this archetype, not go, oh, that's me, I'm Enki, or I'm Inanna, but to see that as, what lessons can I learn from, if I live my life like that, am I going to run to heaven and cry to my father and tell him to kill somebody because he wouldn't have sexual favor with me? That's what she did. You see what I'm saying? So you can use them like your parents and go, what lessons can I learn from that? But it's not me, and I don't have to be that. Right? But there may be significant oversoul sharing of information from those archetypes as you approach those in your energy at the various chakras, where you may take on this thing feeling, I had to walk in, I'm that one now, right? I see it all the time. But that's not necessarily the case. You're here now having this experience in your avatar body, but that doesn't mean your energetic vortices can't be significantly influenced by their oversouls, their archetypes, astrology, and you know this for a fact. These planets have various energetic frequencies that, when combined, seem to trigger various aspects of our archetypal oversoul. And the farther you get, the more you realize, am I interdimensionally traveling while I'm awake? What's going on here, right? Am I right?
It's been a wild trip. But I got, I'm not really a scared person. I'm kind of brave, but that scared me. I woke up one time, and I woke up in my bed, and I've been completely detoxing too. So it's not like I was drunk or anything. I was completely sober. And I woke up and I saw like these green, almost crystals. They look maybe like kryptonite is the best way I can explain it. I couldn't count them, but there was a few of them over my heart, and I felt like somebody was doing something to me. And I woke up in an anxiety attack. Like and which I can't even think I ever had in my whole life. Yeah, I was sweating and my heart was and I felt like I was losing my mind a little bit, and I'm over it. Your information helps so much. I'm so grateful because it's hard to find, you know.
I'm going to unplug here in a minute and go look. My genealogy table's just back here on the wall. I just had a brain block. I forgot to go and look because her relationship's kind of complicated. And her journey into the underworld, what you brought up about Tanzanite, Dumuzi was Enki's son, okay? He was called Tammuz or Dumuzi. He was the shepherd king in Sumer. And he had a relationship with Inanna, big time, in the record. As a matter of fact, he ended up being accidentally killed in a conflict over her, and he ended up being assigned to the underworld where he would come out in spring. He was the vegetation god, okay? But he spent half his time in what they call the underworld, where Ereshignal was the queen of the underworld, and her husband was Nergal or Metatron, okay? These are real Anunnaki, okay, in the family. So whatever this underworld energy place was where they were managing energy for their avatars is real. It's very real. So
I heard that she buried him at Adam's calendar because she was pissed.
I never heard this story.
I was like looking it up on the internet, but I don't know what's true and what's not true.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes to differentiate the unless you read the source of the story or the original source. I was going to say too, it could. What was that?
How long have you been doing yoga?
For many years now. Goodness, I probably started. I was exposed to it pretty early on, and then I didn't start my own practice until probably 2008, and then
Did you have any kind of weird experiences?
I'm trying to remember. It was at the time I was going through a hard time, so it was kind of my own journey within to find peace with myself, and that's kind of how I started the journey too. But at the time I wasn't nearly as far along spiritually as I am now. So it's been a long 10 years.
I'm also doing a video diary for myself through this 120-day, and hopefully maybe at the end I can write a book or do something to help other people.
Yeah.
Well, if you were to document the process of what spiritual things you approached as you relate them to your chakras and what you personally got, you might be able to see that certain archetypes get certain lessons and certain ones get other ones. I don't know. I truly think the truth is a pathless land, or whatever you're getting at that place is what you're individually supposed to get.
And it could have been maybe her saying, hey, I originally brought this yoga to India, and maybe just some recognition for that and some recognition of the goddess energy within. It could have been something simple.
Yeah, she is the daughter of Nanar and Ningal. Okay, this is such an epic story in the Lamentations of Ur that Krista and I recorded online on YouTube, and I included it in my 7th Planet Mercury Rising book. She shows up. Ningal and Nanar are the children of Enlil. Okay, and it turns out that he's known as Allah today with the Islam religion. Okay, he was the king of the city of Ur in the 2nd dynasty, with his wife Ningal, who was mentioned in the accounts. Okay, well, the daughter of those two is Inanna, and her brother is called Utu Shamash. That was his name. So when you see Shamash or Utu, that's her brother, and he was called the Shining One or something like that in my genealogy table, and you'll see that. Okay, does that help place them among this family of beings?
It does. It does. I don't know why. I don't know. You can't tell me. I don't know why. I mean, it must be for a reason. I felt when I first heard it, it felt good to me. It didn't feel scary.
Well, I'm not saying it's bad. It just represents an archetype. None of the chakra attributes are bad. They just represent who we are, right?
No, but when I started kind of reading about the Anunnaki and their whole shtick, and then I was tripping out. I was like, you must have have felt that way too.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you know what came up after the first book, and after I'd convinced myself wasn't just myth and a story, and it took me many years, over 9 years, okay? And then I finally realized at some point, oh my gosh, this isn't just research anymore.
It's real.
This is real.
Yeah.
And at that point, I mean, yeah, it took me a while to grapple with it, definitely.
The crazy thing is when you listen to it broken down, and I love that he's a scientist at yours, because you're intelligent and it's not like, oh, just woo woo, and you know,
Right.
how can you not believe it? You're reading the oldest text.
Exactly.
Well, you know, these things have been in museums since the 1890s. These documents I'm talking about are in the British Museum. They're at the University of Pennsylvania, University of Chicago. You know, the anthropology museums, right, in the universities, they have them, and they've been there for a very long time. And even the fact that we could read them as of 1871, they still were treated as myth up until not even 25 years ago.
That's crazy. Well, they control. They want to control.
Yeah.
But I know that like Enki is supposed to be good, right? And Enlil is bad.
Well, they represent archetypes, and sometimes they change roles, from what I can tell. So going back to Zoroastrianism, for instance, in Persia, the founder of that region, according to the documents I've seen, was Zarathustra, who was none other than Enki's son Thoth, Ningshita. Okay, Enki turned out to be the chief god of Zoroastrianism. He was the god of light and wisdom, who was called Ahura Mazda. And then his arch rival, who represented, this is the first place it seems like where Christianity got the idea of a god and a devil, okay, was from Zoroastrianism. And the one who was the destroyer, who was probably just playing that role to balance creation and destruction, was his half-brother Enlil. So Angra Mainyu was Enlil, and Ahura Mazda was Enki. And as a matter of fact, they've been actually the archetypes in almost every human religion. Even in India, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, those are all three Anunnakis. So all through the Mahabharata and all those ancient documents. So they've been here for a very long time. Yeah.
But I hear you really like Thoth, right? Because I've been following and he's a teacher. He's supposed to be benefactor for
Well,
us.
let's talk about veneration and prayer and all that kind of stuff, because this comes up when you find out that they were extraterrestrials and some of them portrayed themselves as gods. Well, listen, if they were that advanced and an indigenous population had an encounter with somebody who had aircraft and advanced communications, they would treat them like gods, because how else would you treat them? I mean, it's like where primitive meets advanced, that's what happens. So I don't particularly, I see them as peers in the multiple race, parallel evolution of consciousness back to the source, and all of us are at different places. And the reason I like teachers who tell you the truth, who doesn't like a teacher that tells you the truth? It just so happens we have a few of them. And Thoth has written over 35,000 books, and we've only got some of them, okay? After the destruction of the Library of Alexandria and elsewhere, we only have so many of these books. But everyone I've ever laid my eyes on, he tells the truth. He tells advanced science in these documents that we didn't even know at the time when he was writing it. And the most important thing of all is he empowers people to know that this entire experience you're having is an illusion, that you are an eternal energy being from the source, and this is the manual for getting out of the material illusion of Ka and living a real life where you can travel to the halls of Amenti, be a multidimensional being, and take on ownership for all the gifts that they programmed into us that most of us don't even know about. But you stumble onto these things when you do things like Kundalini yoga and all this. You don't even know how capable and massive your role is in this simulation.
I wanted to ask you too about that, because I had seen in one of your videos that it's all right to go to the halls of Amenti. Am I saying it right?
Amenti, yes. Well, he invites you in the Emerald Tablets, and I put these in an audiobook on my YouTube channel. I gave it away for free, all 15 Emerald Tablets I've recorded in audio, and they're on YouTube. And the scrolling text version, where I just read it, but I don't do any commentary, that's up there as well. But he encourages you and tells you, after he explains the holographic model, which I also put on my Facebook page and elsewhere, he basically lays out the dimensionality model of our parallel reality, lower dimensions, higher dimensions, and the pathway, at least while you're still in this avatar body. If you want to have multidimensional experiences, he tells you how to do that. And the key to that for him was learning how to distinguish your energy from your matter. In other words, what you're doing is experiencing your energy and realizing that's way more important than the hair and the eyes and all that, okay? Yes, that's the material, I don't know, I guess you could call that the light encoded reality of the material world that's been stitched onto the energy template that's you. But it's transient, but your energy is eternal. And Thoth teaches you that. And not only that, but how to separate your energy through meditation and things. And he invites you to go through the portal, which is our dimensional boundary, okay, in the third dimension. Meet his father, who's Osiris, pass the little test that he tells you what the answer to is in the book, and visit what he believes is his destination on Arulu, wherever that is. I think it's a sixth-dimensional planet or a series of planets that are probably part of what the Anunnaki ended up controlling in the heavens. So it's not just one planet. They have like constellations that they're affiliated with and alliances and all that kind of stuff. So,
You know what I had been wondering, because they're supposed to be so much more evolved than us, correct? The Anunnakis. They seem very petty.
well, every society is composed, and every planet's civilizations are composed, if they're not artificial, viral, replicating intelligence, okay, they're composed of individuals with individual souls that are on an individual evolutionary path. So you can't call a whole civilization, well, they're all evil. There might be some really great people, just like the world now, but then a bunch of criminals too, okay? So you have the whole range from serial killer to saint in every society, okay? So some of the Anunnaki were very benevolent to humanity, and other races they were aligned with were benevolent, like the Lyrians and the Pleiadians, okay? Not so much the Draco and the Greys, okay? But that's a whole nother matter, okay? But they got involved in some of the Anunnaki factions as well.
But so do we think Inanna is a benefactor, or?
Well, each one of them gives you pieces of their reality through their archetype. So Enki gives you the savior archetype. Oh, I saved my son from the flood, so that's the savior archetype. Inanna's the I don't know, I guess you could say the sexual healing seductress that is involved with Tantra kind of archetype, okay? Then there's Anu, who plays the chess master, the game room ruler who marionettes everyone, okay?
Isis the mother.
And then there's Isis, who, by the way, Ninmah Isis was Enki's half-sister, and it's Enlil's half-sister too, by the way. And when you look at the genealogy table, they're all the kids of Anu, okay? Who was the father in heaven. If you read the Lord's Prayer again, think of Anu, Enki, and Enlil sending veneration to the Father in heaven, yeah.
It is so crazy.
They called Nibiru heaven multiple times in the documents, okay? So it's unquestionable.
Like if these people knew who they were praying to.
Oh, I know.
Oh, absolutely did. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, Anu. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Listen, when they announced kingship being lowered to the earth in the Sumerian kings list, that's exactly what happened. His kingship came to earth. So, anyway, not to get lost on that story. We want to focus a little bit more on Betty, because you are the focus of this interview. So tell us the golden rules of what you've learned about Tanzanite and
Astrology,
the phi ratio between Venus and Earth. What have you found out?
Well, that one, because with the Venus, I was just paying attention, things have just been flowing and working. I've been finding, the more I seek, the more I find, and it's like this is happening. It's just so I know I'm on the right path. It's just confusing. When I heard Tanzanite, I looked it up. Then I found out about Tanzania. It takes a while. When you restart it, and then you find something, you're like, okay, I get it now. And so supposedly the Tanzanite stones are supposed to keep you safe when you travel interdimensionally. I have not done it yet. I do lucid dream.
Mm-hmm. Oh, do you?
But I can't get out of my room. Like I'll wake up in my bedroom and be like, oh, and I'll be like, okay, I'm flying. Like, and I'll know in my dream, but I don't know if I'm afraid or what's holding me back.
Usually when you first start that, and I talked about this a lot, it started happening to me when I was a teenager. And I discovered Robert Monroe's book, Journeys Out of the Body. And he talks about not only that process of, he calls it locale 1, 2, and 3 of these regions where you can go when you're out of body. And it seems like, from my research and correlating it with Thoth's holographic template, they seem to correlate to our Van Allen belts, our 3 Van Allen belts in space, where your electrical energy body cannot transcend that unless you go through a certain portal. And it's probably at one of the poles, if I had to guess, whatever it is. But
have you been to the halls of Amenti?
I feel like I've actually been to the place where I got to go to the Duat and having an encounter with Osiris multiple times. And Osiris is Enki, by the way. That was another avatar for him. Remember the god of Egypt, Osiris? There was Isis, Osiris, and Horus, that story. Well, Isis and Osiris were brother and half sister, and that was Enki and Ninmah. So we can go from all the way back in the prehistory Nibiru to Sumer to Greece to Rome. And you can see the whole Anunnaki Council of 12. They maintained, especially in the Greek Council, the Olympian Council of 12, those were all Anunnaki. The exact analog that we had in Sumer. So.
This is just crazy, crazy.
Well, you know, you brought up something about tanzanite and the energy to use it. And it talks about interdimensional travel and things like that. And I've actually been thinking a lot about material and their frequencies and the molecular bonds, because I'm into kind of physics stuff, right? I just did a gravity series and we're talking about atomic expansion theory.
Oh, I watched it. I loved it.
So, but now you start thinking about something like tanzanite, and we now believe that every material thing has a frequency that interacts somehow using light to stitch periodic table of the elements together to create this matter, okay, that we call matter. And what I was just telling Christa was, wouldn't it be nice to have like a book that showed all these minerals and it talks about their energy, but to actually quantify it and go, what is the molecular spacing? Kind of like the data you get off the periodic table of the elements. How many electrons does it have that are free and all that? Because these minerals, I mean these crystals, they very much interact with energy, and then they translate that energy into various frequencies. They're energy transducers, really, and some of them can maintain memory. It's very bizarre. So
They like obsidian here.
yeah, I don't know a huge about crystals, but some people meditate with them to facilitate certain energy. We found the monatomic gold from the transition metals mixed with meditation does really great things. So there's various things you can do to augment your energy, but ultimately, what are we trying to do? We're trying to get our energy optimized where we can have the most bomb experience in this short material life, right?
Yeah.
I also got a word, tourmaline. So I found this black tourmaline. I don't know if you guys can see it.
Oh, yeah.
And then I have a whole bunch of my tanzanite. I'm not a shopaholic.
Well, what did you learn about tourmaline? Where did you feel like it worked out? We know tanzanite supposedly helps with this interdimensional travel. So what I'm getting is a pieced together story. Thoth wants you to come to the halls of Amenti. And you can do that in your out of body. So now you're in locale 1 in your out of body experience. He tells you exactly in the Emerald Tablets how to summon him to be taken, and your soul will be taken to the halls of Amenti. He tells you how to do it. So that must be the next thing for you.
Well, I'm so excited. Tourmaline in the black is a protection. So it's also great. I have everybody in my life. I make everybody get some, and it protects you from the EMFs. It supposedly takes energy, not only just absorbs it, but transforms the negative into positive.
Wow.
I actually had an argument with my husband one time while wearing my bracelet.
Uh-huh.
And my whole arm turned red right around it. It was like it was working overtime.
Wow. Well, there's a lot more about the human energy body that we need to know as humans. One thing Thoth does say is that there's not only a received kind of energy that flows through your bones, but he talks about how important magnetism is. And I don't think we ever really understood the extent of how magnetism works with the human body. But there's something to it, definitely. Electricity and magnetism definitely go hand in hand. So if you're talking about magnetism, you're talking about essentially electron clouds that are somehow interacting with your energy body. So there's something to it. I need to learn more about it as well.
It's all how I see, and that's why I love astrology, is that we're all energy, and we're all just vibrating. And people always ask me, is it good? Is it bad? Is it and I don't really buy into good or bad. I mean, I think there's positive and negative, and the highest expression, the lowest expression, and a million places in between. And some days we're not some days we're operating high, and some days not so much. And so when I view astrology, yes, I will answer people's questions because they want that. They want to know things, but I try to go more towards empowering them.
Well, here's one I use to empower people. You can borrow it if you want or not. I tell people in this range of experience of what they can have in this life, if they see it as a place to learn and evolve out of this meat host and wake up to the true reality of themselves, and then everything becomes a lesson, right? But in that process, everything is permissible in the material reality. Okay, you can't stop somebody from overdosing on heroin or jumping off a cliff or just whatever. Everything's permissible. But not everything, if you're paying attention to this school, is helpful for you getting from point A to point B. So if you're interested in what's helpful, it'll cut out all that other stuff. You may do it once or twice if you live through it, and then you go, nah, that wasn't helpful in my path, and I'm not doing that again. But that free will to choose that and experience that, I think is required to be able to, in this duality consciousness, to go, well, that's bad, this is good, so I'm going to keep choosing the light. And it's a simple model, but it works.
I wanted to ask you too, with the interdimensional traveling. So I have this little stone, this tanzanite. Can you guys see that?
Mm-hmm.
I ordered, and it's flat. So look, when I meditate now, I'm going to watch. I put it on my head now, and now it's staying. It's weird, but usually it falls right off. But when I meditate, I put it on my head, and it stays there the whole time. And sometimes when I meditate, I do it in the mirror.
Yeah.
I sit in the mirror, and
Is that where you feel like you're focused is on your third eye chakra?
Right here at the stone, I turn black, like you can't see me at all, and then there's just a light. And I mean, I guess I couldn't record it because I don't think you could see it. But I don't know why I even do that. But I love to do it in front of the mirror. Is that weird? Is that
No.
Actually, I got something here I wanted to share with you. So you're focused on the seven or the third eye chakra. So I'm opening up something from Poimander's 7 spheres, and I'm gonna let Christa read them to you. And he actually does the 8th one, which is the most interesting. But maybe share that with her so you can see the aspects of the planets. Now you have to understand, Thoth Hermes had an encounter with the universal source he calls Poimander, the universal dragon. Okay, for some reason it was a symbol of a dragon to him. It could be Inanna to you or Thoth to me, but in this document, and it comes out of Manly P. Hall's book, Secret Teachings of All Ages. Extremely good book. But these aspects, I think you'll find interest in these from your astrology exposure. Why don't you share those with her, honey?
Gerald writes, it is interesting that the Hindu religion also assigns gods to the chakras. The 7 governors are listed below. Number 1 is the moon, the ability to increase and diminish. Number 2 is Mercury, machinations, deceit, and craftiness. Number 3 is Venus, lusts and passions. Number 4 is Sun, ambitions. Number 5 is Mars, rashness and profane boldness.
I like that one.
Number 6 is Jupiter. Car going by. Number 6 is Jupiter, sense of accumulation and riches. Number 7 is the gates of chaos, falsehood, and evil plotting.
But Saturn.
Oh, Saturn, pardon. And 8 is the 8th sphere, ring of the fixed stars. Here, freed of an illusion, one dwells with the light and harmony with source, your goal.
So what Poimander indicates in this document is that once you die, your soul or your chakra, each one of those is affiliated with one of these 7 planets. You give back the aspect to it if you're going to go forward. And if you're going forward to an evolutionary higher dimension, you go to the 8th sphere, which is I think it's, he calls it the birthplace of the souls, where you go, it's a repository, if you will. I guess, what do they call that in religion? Not purgatory, but some temporary place where your energy stays without a body. And if you're supposed to be reincarnated back because you didn't make it through the 7 spheres, you never get this far. You just go right back into reincarnation. But if you're progressing, you have to give back the aspects of this avatar soul that works in the 3rd dimension on Earth, and you go back to the ring, this chaos place in the Milky Way galaxy. He calls the 8th sphere. And from that place you get assigned to maybe some other dimension. Maybe you get to go be the goddess of Inanna on some other planet and play that archetype for them. Who knows, right? But you're eternal, and you're going to have lots of incarnations, and you probably already have.
Oh, I'm sure of it. I'm sure. But you know what I was wondering? Are you familiar at all, or what you think about Edgar Cayce and his?
Yeah, I actually ran into that name the first time, kind of by surprise. I was in schoolwork learning structural integration in Hawaii when Ida Rolf's very first teacher, Emmett Hutchins, mentioned that he and Ida were friends. And I was like, what? Edgar Cayce? Who's that? And then I find out about the ARE, the Advanced Research Enlightenment, or whatever it's called, ARE, the Institute in Virginia that he runs. He's since passed, but the thing that really got me about him was his discussions about human energy. And he did a discussion about the incarnations of Jesus that turned out to be a really important document for a lot of people who wanted to understand this archetype of how many incarnations, and he did a great job on that. So if you look up Incarnations of Jesus, Edgar Cayce, there's a really highly viewed document and a table there that shows all the different names like Melchizedek and Buddha and Confucius, all these incarnations of this.
Is he Thoth?
Yes. Exactly. That's what I discovered, is that this being that was Enki's second born son, his energy was playing all these roles for us. And he made the commitment for us to connect this asleep meat host back to waking up to realizing we are light. We are sources of light, having a material experience. Okay.
It's Mercury retrograde right now.
Yeah.
We would use it.
We haven't experienced that at all.
Oh, no.
Well, I know you're a Capricorn because I saw you hold up your chart once when you were.
Yeah, I put some highlighter on it. I had no idea that.
The green screen color has the green.
And it cut the whole thing off. I was like, oh. And I was trying to look around at it like that. I'll never do that.
I was trying to zoom in and see. I'm like, where is it? What's happening?
Yeah, I was born on December 23rd.
You have a lot of You're very Capricorn. I can tell, like that. But that's like the
Do you use
structure.
the Hindu sidereal zodiac at all?
No, I don't use that one at all. I mean, I've been exposed to it, but it just doesn't resonate with me. So I don't. I mean, I love to listen to anybody talk about it, and but I don't. For me, this works for me. I don't know, like it just works. But with Edgar Cayce, now the sojourns. Have you heard of that? Because it says that when the soul has done something, maybe it's so damaged and it can't get over it, it'll go to Saturn, and I guess it'll get like burnt and started anew.
No, you'll have to pull that up for us. I don't recall reading that from you. I do. I'm not sure I even have Edgar Cayce's book anymore because I've moved so many times and I end up losing things in the right. But
I'll find
I
it.
really enjoyed reading his stuff. He's very profound. For people that don't know about Edgar Cayce,
Oh, it's amazing.
how many thousands of volumes of channeled healings he did from his institute all over the world. The God is absent. He's probably the most famous sleeping prophet on the planet.
Amazing.
Just for a fun side note, he was actually led to that information about Thoth and all the incarnations in Edgar Cayce right before he did a show, his first show on Coast to Coast.
I remember that.
It was almost like
Wow.
It was crazy.
It was really a cool moment, but I thought maybe.
It's like here I was looking through this book, like an hour before I'm doing my first coast to coast national show, a 3-hour-long show. And I'm here being directed to look something up in this book. And I'm like, that's it.
It's wild.
It was wild, yeah.
You just gotta I love the Kundalini, let it drive. You know,
Yeah, well, there's things you can do to facilitate and make it go faster too. And I was going to tell you, Cresta and I are doing a new premier content series where we're going to be focusing on gravity applied. In other words, what can you do with the gravity field that can accelerate the evolution of your consciousness? Because, I don't know, you're probably not so much into this, but for me, I wrote an equation looking at how gravity, whatever we call gravity, this energy of gravity, what it does to your human energy body. It's very significant, one of the most significant. So
that sounds amazing.
Yeah, so we're going to do a series on that for people
in the background.
In the background, while we still do all our Anunnaki and all the other things that we do. But that's going to be coming up in your content.
Is it going to be like a yoga practice kind of a situation?
Well, the chart in the background might give you a clue of where we're going. I was trained as a structural integrator, and Christa was my first student years ago, and she's had many clients and has been practicing as well. So that's a practice that teach people how to relate themselves to the gravity field. And it's not just standing up and posturing. It's real change in the body that maps the lines and planes that we image. So it's a process. You can look it up. It's called structural integration. But,
we'll be doing an intro video version explaining it.
And then there's going to be some movement repatterning that it's not designed to injure you, okay? And I'm not bashing yoga. I do yoga a lot. But you can't just suddenly go, I want to get flexible, go to a yoga class and expect not to get hurt if you're trying to keep up with an instructor. That doesn't work, okay? You know. So there's a process of the body awakening to its possible malleability where it can be free and experience these higher energy states during meditation and things. Listen, if you're trying to sit still and your body's bugging you, you can't meditate.
No.
Right? Shoulders hurt, you're like, oh, you can't be still. So that's part of the process of why people deal with the body, is so that it'll be still and be quiet so you can be with the energy, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of a simplistic.
Turn off the thoughts.
Right. So structural integration is part of that. And it turns out it's one of the most powerful ways to get the body to be quiet and be relaxed in the gravity field so you can experience the energy of this reality without being in pain.
Thank you so much for doing what you do, because it's confusing and it's nice to have somebody who knows what they're doing to tell us what to do. Well,
I'm only here as an advisor, and I don't know the truth, and I don't want anybody to hear me saying I have the truth. I'm sharing the experience of the map I went through this life, and it resonates with some people and it doesn't with others, right? So, and only you and all the people that are listening, no one can tell you what the truth is. Only you know what your truth is, because it's a pathless land. Your path is not the same as someone else's, because if it was, you'd just copy them, and there'd be no work involved. So every one of us, as we approach those different energy chakras, get different lessons relative to where we are on this path. So, and I'm just a source of information. But it is part of my mission to, once you wake up to that higher energy, you're not a servant of lunacy and idiocracy anymore. You're a servant of reality, and you don't really have a choice, because it is so much a part of who you are that you can't put on airs and be something else. It's just who you are, as your higher self. And all of us, when we remember who we are, there is really only one thing to do, but to remind everyone else of who they are so they can experience the same thing. That's all we're doing. You can't wake them up. You can't change them, but you can give them just enough sharing of your path that they might see that and go, that might be part of what I'm supposed to be doing too. I don't know. Right? So that's how I see it. So I don't have a quota. I'm not out to wake up the world or anything like that. I'm just sharing our path.
No, I love your style. I love it. And I'm so grateful, because I want the wisdom but I do not have the patience to do what you do. And God bless you for being
it does take a different person to want to look at this kind of stuff, not participate in the mainstream culture, assimilate that, because you have to maintain an outside perspective to truly not be part of the matrix if you want to talk about the way out of it or whatever you want to do with it.
Well, I mean, I think it's always been kind of obvious to me that that's crazy. Like, I always knew the news was evil. I mean, I don't want to use the word, I'm not trying to be judgmental, but this is my perspective of it. I've always felt that religion was off. Because my father was Catholic, my mother was Protestant. There was a giant problem. And I went to, so when they got divorced, I had gone to Catholic, religion classes. And then they got divorced, and then I was thrown into the Lutheran. And I'm like, this is what you're fighting about? Really? It's so minuscule, the differences. And it's like, now you hate everybody? This is so godlike. It didn't make any sense. And so for me, I was always very turned on. I've studied a lot of them. And I want to know the thread that runs through them. But I think they're all really to control you. And who's to say that God only likes me and you guys?
Right.
Well, but before you get there, you got to go, well, there's 3,300 names or so of God. Which one do I want to use? Because names have power, right? So it just isn't, well, we're talking about that for your community and such. I did the Baptist thing and the Catholic thing, and I got the mix. And for people that don't know, I have a God table in my book that names who they were in the religions as well. So who was Yahweh? Who was Adonai, who was Allah, all that. Okay, so we know from their account who they were. That doesn't mean they were good or bad, but the Abrahamic religions are all three called Abrahamic religions for a good reason. They were under the control of one of the chief lords of command of the Anunnaki Council. That was Enlil, Yahweh himself. So.
When you do go out of body and you meet a being, do they have to answer you their true intentions if you ask them, are you a higher being of the light? Like, how do you know who to go with or who to
Well, I think what you started with was the correct thing, was when you establish your intention, when you separate your energy. And if you read Emerald Tablet 6, the cycle masters and Poiminder himself will also say that once you get to this place, they will guard you against your lower nature. And if it's your intention to only have encounters with beings, energy objects that are going to propel your path, then that's what will happen. You don't need to invite any darkness in, and they will truly shield your path. So you talk about energetic protection, the discussion of having the cycle masters, the ones that control your chakras on this planet, that control the range of consciousness from A to B in this dimension. You get their protection, you're golden. In this particular dimension.
And you can do it for yourself or for others.
So we highly encourage Emerald Tablet 6. It's online. If you do that, I've never been visited by that level of darkness like I was before, since asking for the protection from the cycle masters. Seriously. Okay. And Thoth tells you to do this. He actually guides you. If you can't get rid of this yourself, try this. Really, it works every time.
And he encourages you to be your brothers and sisters' keeper, to do it for someone if they're not willing to do it for themselves. We've had that many times.
Yeah. That's amazing. So do you guys, can you travel together out of body? Like, can you go meet up?
He's traveled out of body.
I had encounters with her out of body in Locale 1 several times.
I've had lucid dreams, but I wanted to have out of body experiences, but I don't feel like I've truly had that where I've seen my body and that's it. But I want to, so I'll keep trying.
I wanted to ask you one more thing. I wanted to know how the Akashic records, is that a real thing? Do you like them? Where do we get them? Because I also was drawn in the beginning of this too. I always had a knowing that I'm supposed to read them.
I would say that the entire universe is an information field that can be encoded on light. So once you're approaching this place where you're more in touch, and this is a DNA change, by the way, suddenly you don't seem to need to be seeking out information from books as much. You seem to be getting it from the archetype, the oversoul, the intuition, the internet highway of the universe, whatever you call that. And information is not localized, okay? So you have a thought, it turns into a brainwave. That's an electrical signal. Well, anybody in the galaxy who have the sensors to receive that could tune into that. And I think that happens in reverse to us, where what we call, and there may be an actual record where it's written and blah, blah, but the way that I see people getting it is like tapping into a radio station. It starts becoming information that's available to everyone. It's like the universal consciousness.
Okay, so you don't have to go somewhere to do it. You can just do it.
I don't think so. You don't have to go anywhere to do anything when you realize that you are the gateway to an interdimensional reality. You take yourself everywhere you go, in any dimension you're in.
It is, since I've been doing the Kundalini, I've always been very intuitive, but I'm like blowing it's crazy. Like I said, and I don't see things or hear, I just know things. I don't know why. And I'll tell people.
Well, it's really neat. When mine started, and Kundalini, for people who don't know, is like, excuse me, it's often symbolized as a coiled snake, which our analogy is a coiled spring that has potential energy to be released. And this seems to be how we were designed in our chakra system, where you have these energy centers. They're nerve ganglia, okay, nerve complexes where they accumulate. They're all up and down our central spine, right? Well, one of those affiliated with the potential energy of Kundalini is in the ganglia of Impa on the bottom of the tailbone. And that's where it's represented in the yoga charts. You'll see it there, okay? Well, that potential energy, whatever catalyst that causes that to release, once it's sprung, it doesn't stop. And so you have the pranayama that's going up, the energy that's trying to go up, one of the nadis in your energy body, and then the sushumna is the middle, and then the pingala nadi, the other side, the energy goes down. So it kind of circulates.
Okay.
Right through the peak of your positive pole of your energy body, which is in your spinal-palatine ganglia up here. So you got this positive and negative pole where it's trying to complete a cycle, and that exposure of that energy circulating also wakes up your endocrine system. So you might notice something different with how your skin feels, or all those kinds of things. How you react with water or sunlight. All that will start changing. It's fascinating.
And
It's wild.
the structural integration work too, that'll trigger it too.
Yeah, it oftentimes structure.
I can't wait. I'm totally going to do that. I also have stopped eating grain and dairy for the DNA thing, because I feel that they're messing with us with the GMOs.
That's her problem, but yeah, you got it for sure.
Well, that's why I love your channel. I love all of your recipes, because it is challenging to eat something delicious. Sometimes I don't mind, but once in a while I'm like, I really wouldn't mind having something good. And so that's why you have great ideas. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it, because it's boring sometimes.
Are we going to be allowed to tell the community that there's an astrologer among us and they can reach out to you?
Yeah, how do people get allowed to do whatever? You guys are my new favorite people.
Oh.
Well, tell us how they get in touch with you and stuff like that.
So, sure. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. My website is www.astrologywithbetty.com. My phone number is 516-770-3015. I also have an 800 number. It's 888-23-ASTRO, ASTRO. I'm Betty at astrologywithbetty.com. And I also have a Facebook page, Facebook Astrology with Betty.
Okay.
And I think that would be it. And I have a YouTube, but when I talked to Christa the other day, I was laughing because it's like, you have to when I get inspired, it's like, then I'm like, okay, I gotta do my hair, gotta put on my makeup. So it's so much easier just to sit down in front of the computer and talk.
Oh, I know, not have anyone there.
No.
It takes so long for us women. I'm like jealous of the guys. I'm like, all they have to do is be like, okay, put a hat on. All right, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
That's true. Actually, you look like fantastic. You did a lot more prep to look good on the camera than I did. That's true. Okay.
Yeah, it's but I guess I'll have to get out of my lower chakras and get over myself and get back into making more videos, because I really enjoyed it.
Well, you've got a great personality and your energy. You really, I think, help people get to know you if you put out some videos like this. And,
Yeah.
it'll be fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it so much.
Well, why don't we call that a good closing spot then, and then we can chat a little bit more after we close off. But I think we're sitting about a little over an hour right now. So does that sound good, Betty?
That sounds amazing. And God bless you guys, the real high one, not the fake one.